Hey there, welcome back to the Counterservice Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Jacobson, and this is a podcast dedicated to teaching organizations how to learn. Now, over the past couple of episodes, we've been looking at a study conducted by the Center for Creative Leadership. And this study focuses on 6 major challenges that leaders are facing across the globe. And we've taken a look at developing managerial effectiveness, inspiring others, and developing employees. And today, we're going to look at the last 3, which I really think incorporates really all 6 of them. But we're going to look at the last 3 around leading a team, guiding change, and managing internal stakeholders in politics. So as a way to deal with some of these common leadership challenges, I think today we should focus on our questions, our habits, and our agreements. Now, let's focus on questions. Let's start with questions. Well, when you take a look at questions, I think I'm really inspired by the work of Patrick Lencioni in his book called The Advantage. Now, I looked on Amazon recently and discovered that I'd purchased this book in 2012. So I think a decade later, it's worth taking another lap with Patrick and taking a look at the questions he's posing. Again, I think it's worth taking a look at these questions if these common challenges around leading a team, guiding change as an example. So maybe we should revisit these 6 questions within our organization, especially amongst your leadership team. The first question he asks is, why do we exist as an organization, as a company, as a nonprofit? Question number 2, how do we behave within this organization, within this company, within this nonprofit? Number 3, what do we do? What is the work we do? Number 4, how will we succeed? Number 5, what is important right now? And number 6, who must do what? I think you need clarity around these 6 questions. If you're going to deal with these common leadership challenges, I think it's providing clarity around these 6 questions. And if you've done this before, it's worth iterating again and again because there are probably some new leaders on your team, new employees within your organization. You need to dive deeper with these 6 and provide some clarity around that, and then over-communicate that clarity around those questions. So answer those questions first. I think secondly, as a way to deal with these leadership challenges that are common across the globe, is around habits, especially around leadership habits. We talked a lot about habits on this leadership podcast, but I'd like to focus on the habits that Vern Harnish talks about in Scaling Up. Now, in his book, he identifies 10 different ones. I think it's worth taking a look at the 10. I think where you find alignment amongst your team, then adapt those same ones. Where you don't find alignment, create your own or create a shorter list of habits, but develop some habits that are comprehensive of your organization among your leadership team. For example, I think a habit worth taking a look at is your executive team healthy and aligned? Do you understand each other's differences and priorities, styles, values? Do you meet frequently to think strategically about your organization, your company? That's where you're committed to clear decisions and you're focused on collective results. So how healthy and aligned is your leadership team? I think that's a habit worth talking about and really going into. I mean, are you committed to ongoing education as executive leaders? That's a habit worth talking about and nailing down. Another habit particularly is around communication. And Vern Harnish in his book would say the communication rhythm as a habit is established and information moves through the organization accurately and quickly. Now, a highlight from that I'd like to bring up in this conversation is what we would call Druckerize, like using Peter Drucker sort of decision-making and communication protocol so prevalent. And he would say that the team understands as a habit that a decision has not been made until A, the name of the persons accountable for carrying it out have been identified, the deadline, the time frame for completion has been identified, the names of people who would be affected in by the decision and therefore have to know about it, understand it, or approve it, or at least are not strongly opposed to it. And then finally, the names of people who have to be informed of the decision, even if they're not directly affected by it. That's directorizing your communication, your decisions. That is a habit worth taking a look at. Another habit to develop as a leadership team is saying that every facet of your organization, as Vern Harnish would say, has a person assigned with accountability for ensuring growth and impact. And then lastly, a habit could be that your mission and vision are alive within your company, that your core values, all your processes, all your activities, all your actions align with the organizational mission and vision and values statements. So answer some questions. Take a look at your leadership team habits. And then also develop some agreements that you can align to as a team as you steward your organization. Now, I think an area worth taking a look at is the Equity Labs agreements, and that maybe you as your team should adopt. I think you could just adopt every one of these just straight off the bat. However, there may be some that really resonate with you, and there may be others that you've identified that's really missing from this list that you would want to take on yourself. But some of their agreements involve stay engaged, speak your truth, experience discomfort. What about this one? Expect and accept non-disclosure. For those obsessive compulsive type A personalities like myself, we want everything wrapped up in a nice bow before we leave, left nothing unresolved. And yet sometimes we have to expect and accept non-disclosure. I love this one. Grace with ourselves and grace with others. And how about an agreement around observe the 24 to 48 hour rule? Like if something is bothering me that someone has said in a particular meeting, in a particular gathering, then I'm not going to let more than 48 hours go by without having a conversation with that person, because that person deserves it, and it allows me to get it off my chest and have a conversation about it. Now, there are all sorts of other agreements that the Equity Lab points out, but again, you may have your own agreements within your organization that your team is just going to live by. So I just think if you're going to confront the 6 common challenges that are facing leaders across the globe, I think today's episode around answering some questions, developing some habits, and establishing some agreements, I think is a great place to start to making a dent in some of those challenges that we are facing in today's organizations.